A handstand, in my opinion, it's a basic position, so it's something that is a skill and that you'll need it. You'll need a certain amount of strength to do it. So you're building more strength in the hands, building more strength in the shoulders. There's a bit of obviously core work, but what's really neglected is the use of your legs. So if you can use your legs more, you'll be able to kick up. So I focus more on strengthening the legs and giving you the ability of kicking up against the wall. And then towards the end of the class, I'll teach you how to walk up a wall, which I think is better in terms of alignment. And like I said, if you can't walk up all the way, you can walk up some of the way. So I hope these classes have been helping. You can always let me know how you need more assistance or support. You could send me a video and then I could help you more in terms of what it is that's missing that you cannot do it. But I have classes throughout the week. I have a restorative, more based in integration and mobility with some breath work on Wednesday nights, and that's from 6:30 to 7:30 Eastern Time. I have a class on Saturdays from 9 to 10, and that's a base level Hatha class, also helping to strengthen hips, shoulders, spine. And if you're really getting stronger, I always say this, in particularly this class, is that you'll develop better flexibility. And usually people strive for more flexibility, and in the process of doing that, over the years I've seen a lot of injuries. So it's better off, in my opinion, to work on getting stronger in practice, and then the flexibility will come. Sunday's class is it's 10 to 11 Eastern Time as well, and that's on Zoom. So you would register for my Zoom classes on my website. It's Jon Witt Yoga. And to contribute and to make a donation if you can, it's through Venmo and PayPal, and it's Jon Witt Yoga. So I'm supporting people with this class. It's donation based because some people can't afford it. So any donation is greatly appreciated. So we're going to start in all four positions. So come onto your hands and your knees. When you're on your hands and your knees, your hands are just going to be basically turned out, and my arms are straight. So there's obviously a straight line in a handstand, but what's often neglected is the strength of the shoulders. So it doesn't have to be incredibly hard here, but you should feel some tension. With the hands turned out, it's a good way to get the shoulder to rotate out. So if you really, really struggle in, say, like wheel, which is really basically the same thing as a handstand, it's an external rotation. So the hands out will help. So turn the hands forward and possibly turn the hands all the way in. And then when you turn the hands in, I'm going to move the weight around. And then in moving the weight around, I'm going to stretch out the forearm, I'll stretch out the wrist, I'll stretch out the hands. And then I'm going to move around, and when I'm on my hands, for this type of work, what I'm trying to see is if I need more weight or if I need less weight. And that's usually what people, when they get into doing hand work, like this prep work for the hands and the wrists, is that they apply too much weight and they actually do more harm than good. So turn the hands forward, and then these are heel lifts. I'm going to lift the heels on my hands and then lower, lifting and lowering. The stronger the grip of the fingertips will make a difference in the way that you support your weight. So if you don't really know how to squeeze, I recommend like hanging from a bar. And it doesn't have to be all your weight from a bar, but you could be in a horizontal position. Like if you looked up Australian pull-ups, just hang with either your arms bent or your arms straight. And then if you can squeeze the bar, right, this is similar work, and that'll help with strengthening the arms. So I'm going to turn my hands back, and then as I turn my hands back towards my knees, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move the weight back a little bit so that I'm obviously stretching out the forearm. In yoga, this is probably the most often position, but to add better extension through the fingers, I'm going to bend the elbows a little bit. And then that's, this is like, if you were ever to fall out of a handstand, which is common, right? You want to prepare yourself for that so that you're not if you were to fall out, you wouldn't injure your hand, your wrist, or your shoulder. That's partially why I'm doing these things. But then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the hands forward, but the backs of the hands are on the floor. So I'm going to move back, and then as I'm moving back, I'm just kind of moving the weight around. And for me, I'm a right-handed person, so I really need more leverage and practice on my left side for my handstand. So I just bring awareness there, and if I need more weight, I'll bring more weight. So what I'm going to do, the last thing is I'm going to turn the backs of the hands to almost kiss together, and I'm going to move the weight side to side. So moving to the hand, the direction, so I'm moving to my left, there's more leverage in my left hand. When I move to my right, there's going to be more leverage in the right hand. But like I said, I really just need more leverage in my left. My right hand, when I'm tired in my handstand, I'm going to use my right hand more than my left. So I'm going to come back into the middle and turn the hands forward. And I'm just going to come into that rounded position. And then in rounding, what I'm going to do is lift the knees off the floor. So I'm just getting my center to come in. So you don't have to be this type of strong unless you're pressing. Like if you're doing a press handstand, you'd use this type of strength in the front of the body to get yourself up. But it's just a form of, you want to keep the ribs in. So come down on the knees and then tuck the toes and sit back on the feet if you can. So just to stretch out the feet. So in this class, I do some deeper squats, some single leg squats. The more you stretch out the feet, the more you'll stretch out the whole entire body. So this is something that if it was really, really intense, you just come out. Your body will tell you when to come out of poses. And some people would say, oh, you're avoiding something. And that's partially true sometimes, but what you really want to do is, if I come out of a pose, even say early, right? I can just keep repeating things. Like I've been practicing long enough that I could practice all day if I had the time or if I really wanted to. And so should you. You should be able to have that type of level of understanding. So come back where the toes are untucked, and then just sit back on the feet. So when I sit back on the feet, I'm just doing this more as just a basic warm-up. So I'm just extending. The great thing with yoga is that you just feel so good from it in terms of the positions. I'm a yoga practitioner. I'm a yoga teacher. So I don't necessarily know what other worlds are, like a hand balancer is. So I use yoga, but on top of it, I'm using handstands as a really good outlet to help develop better awareness, strength. And a handstand's a basic position that will just keep getting better as you practice it. And I wouldn't just stop with a handstand. Like it's a good starting point. And then there's many, many different ways you can practice once you develop the handstand. And what I'm gearing towards is getting you to be able to balance for initially 5-10 seconds. But a good handstand, eventually you should be able to balance for 30 seconds to a minute. It depends on how far you want to take it. So come back onto your hands and your knees and tuck the toes and lift up into a down dog and just pedal the legs out. So just pushing back through the hips, lifting through the hips, and then pushing through. Try to push more through the front of your hand and extend through the arms so the arms are more straight. And I'm going to come forward and through into an up dog, just a straight arm. And I'm using this so that you can conserve some of your energy and your strength, because you might not have a lot of strength yet. So I'm not that you're going to waste your time or energy on a bent arm position, but that's common in yoga, is that there's such a repetitive chaturanga that by the time you get to your handstand, you're already really too tired to actually get into a good position. Right? Pull back through the hips. And then as I'm pulling back, what I'm going to do is just walk the feet forward to the middle of your mat and walk your hands back towards your feet. And then as you walk your hands back towards your feet, I'm going to bend the knees and sit into a squat if I can. And then I'm going to just go back to opening and closing the hands. Just a bit of wrist work. And then fold forward into a forward fold and roll yourself up into a standing position. And then as you roll up, I'm just in a standing position. So we're just going to practice the pelvis position. So often people are in an anterior tilt, so I'm sticking my butt out, and that's partially why the alignment can be a little skewed. So now I'm tucking the tailbone down and I'm using my glutes, and I'm in a posterior tilt. So that's what you want to be in a straight line for your handstands. So just push the hips out, untuck the tailbone, and then push down through the tailbone. And when you're in this posterior tilt, you'll feel your abdominals work. And just because yoga is so heavily practiced by female practitioners, often a female practitioner or a weak male practitioner will be kind of in this sway back type of position. So I'm not going to do it, but my tailbone's tucked and my pelvis is underneath me. And you could hold it for 1 minute to 3 minutes, which is really, really good for your back. Especially, you have a history of back pain, it's a great thing to use. So just take the arms overhead, hook the thumbs, and just bend the knees. And then straighten the legs. And then bend the knees. Keep the ribs in. Bring the tailbone down. Straighten the legs, and then just come back into a bent knee position, extend through the arms, and then you can straighten through the legs and you can bring the arms down. So I'm going to come back, I'm going to roll down into a forward position, and then just come down on the hands and the knees. So again, just push through the hands and round through the shoulders, and we're going to get into more straight arm position. So eventually we're going to do the handstand, but a side plank is a lot like a one-handed handstand. And you want to kind of understand how to push independently with the arms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into my plank. I'm going to round through the shoulders. Now I could stay on my toes or on the tops of my feet. And this is the line. I'm using more of a gymnastic approach. I'm going to tuck the toes and I'm going to spin the heels to the right side. And I'm going to push really strong through the hand. I'm going to take the left arm up if I need it. But like I said, just kind of see where your weight sits, and as you're pushing, you might have to come out early, but you really want the push. You don't want necessarily a long hold, you want quality in the position, right? Bring the left hand down and then spin the heels to the left side, and then take the right arm up to the ceiling. So initially it's okay to push, not so much, but once you get comfortable with it, feel the floor. Relate to the floor. And as you relate to the floor, you'll understand how much you actually need to push. And when you're doing these asymmetrically, you'll see which hand actually needs more practice. And then you can bring the right hand down and then just go back to tucking the toes and sit back on the heels. And take the arms into a cactus position. So just an external rotation of the shoulder. And then you're going to take the arms down and then just come onto the feet. So we're going to go to the wall and start kicking. So when people start learning a handstand, they get too fixated in balancing. And that's usually what makes it so difficult. So almost be happy with not balancing the first time you're kicking up. So this type of warm-up I think is really good for anyone. I'm going to use a number of, say, 3 to 5, and it's just a number, right? Maybe you're kicking up a quarter of the way, again, 3 to 5 times, but if you can do it with me, great. If you do it more, it's just more conditioning, and the stronger you get with this, because you'll get stronger, you'll start to see how it applies in just doing a handstand anytime, anywhere, right? So I'm going to go to the wall. I'm not too close to the wall because if I'm too close to the wall, I won't kick up. But remember, you want to pack the shoulder. And when you pack the shoulder, you'll be able to go up and balance. So if I can't balance on a day, it's often because of how much I'm using my shoulder. For me, that's what's limiting me. And most likely it might be for you as well. That's why I'm reiterating it so much. So push through the hands, grip the fingers, and then just kind of lean forward. If the weight is not forward enough, this is another big reason you won't get up. So you have to come forward enough, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come forward. I'm going to look forward to my fingertips,
but I still want my head in between my arms. And I'm going to swing my right leg up, and then I'm going to bring my right leg down, and I'm going to take the left leg up, push, keep the ribs in, then bringing the left leg down, swinging the right leg up, push, bringing the right leg down, left leg swings up, push, push, ribs in, and then bring the left leg down, right leg comes up. When you come down, if you're strong, right, slow descent, left leg comes up, push, 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 left leg comes down nice and slow, and then we're back into a squat. So, you could time yourself, doesn't have to be a number, but I've said this before, I like going up and down like a basketball court, or as if I had that kind of space. Basketball court's really good, like an outdoor court, because it's smooth, it's going to be easier on your hands. And then eventually you could do it on any kind of concrete, but wood is good as well, like obviously wood floors. The only way I really use a yoga mat, to be honest, is if I'm really sweating a lot or if I'm taking a yoga class. But I like getting used to using any kind of surface, like even uneven surfaces, and then that'll help you in, getting more, because the more challenging it can be, so to speak, it makes it like easy to do, like I said, anywhere, anytime. So just interlace the fingers and just move the hands. And when you're doing wrist work, like when it's not weighted, it might actually be better. Or shaking the hands, right? There's so many things, but what I would stick to is using a consistent 1 or 2 ways. Do that for a week or a month, something like that, and then change it up. The reason I'm changing it up every week is because I think diversity is good, and then it also kind of keeps you on edge, right, in terms of how to do things. So just come forward into a forward fold, and then just kind of move the weight around in the hands. Just bring the weight forward into the hands and into the heels. Not that we're working a press up, but I'm pushing through the hands. I'm pulling in, and then I'm bringing the weight back. One more time, I'm going to push, and then I'm going to bring the weight back into my heels. I'm going to roll myself up. As I roll up, what I'm going to do is, these are good in terms of like single leg squats or pistols are good and strengthening the legs, but most likely you'll need a foot down. So I'm in a shortened stance. These are more like, I'm forgetting the name of these, but I'm sitting down and then I'm coming up. So I'm pushing. Some of you can't do the Cossack, so this is a good alternative. A slow descent I think is really, really great. Finding an angle that you're not flexible in is a great practice. Coming up with some power, because that's really what you're doing when you kick up. So I'm going to come down one more time, and then I'm going to bring myself back up. I'm going to go over to my right side, and then, you could have your foot off the floor. You could use a wall. You could bring yourself up, coming down, bringing yourself up. And again, partial weight or support might be better than just, the full, doing it where the foot's off the floor, so to speak. But, just to give you a different way to kind of help. But I'm going to take my feet out nice and wide. And what I'm going to start with is a really wide horse stance with my feet forward. So it doesn't have to be incredibly wide. What I'm getting at is eventually more space in between the thighs, which will help with Cossack, but it'll also help with wide-angled handstands, whether you're doing the mid handstands or you're eventually pressing up. But just kind of feel how the position is, and just get a sense of how much pressure is in the inner thigh. And if it's ever too much, it's just too much. So you want to use your sensory perception as far as how to make your positions better. So I'm bringing my tailbone down, I'm pulling my pubic bone in, and And that adds a much greater stretch into this position, because if I'm sticking my butt out, there's really not a lot of pressure. So just come back. I should have taught this before, but just straighten the legs out and just bring the tailbone down. Even a wide angled position, you'll start to feel the interior exposed more, right? Then just go back to bending the knees. Take the feet out wider if you need to. You want to be more dynamic in your arms. It's a lot of things we could be doing. So just take 3 more breaths. Push the thighs apart and get more rooted in your tailbone and then the inner thighs, and partially doing this for the Cossack. So straighten the legs. And then when you straighten the legs, I'm going to turn my right foot out. I'm going to sit into the Cossack, but I don't have to sit as super deep, right? I'm sitting about the height of my knee. I've said this before. When I go to my left leg with my left hand, there's more emphasis on my inner thigh. Once I start to lift the foot, then it's more hamstring, still hip, obviously hip related. Drive through the right foot, bring yourself up, and then go over to the left side. And then when you go to the left, just thinking of going to the right leg already adds more pressure into my right leg. If I need more, I bring my hands here. It's just, again, there's more exposure into the right leg when my hands are here. Once I get low enough, I can lift the toes, and then it's more hamstring and the posterior of your glutes, your bum. But drive through the heel of the foot, bring yourself up, and then go over to the right side. And then once we're sitting, we're going to move a little bit more into this. So I'm going to lift up on the right. I'm going to go to the left. I'm going to bring myself up, go to the right. Yeah, this is basic stuff, but it'll transfer over into other practices. Like often I'll meet younger male aspiring practitioners, and they want to get into martial arts, but they're just not really flexible. So that's why I think yoga is a better choice initially. And then, of course, martial arts can be your way, or even an older person, older male practitioner wants to get into like judo or something like that. That's great, but if you don't have the flexibility to do these things or the strength, you're kind of setting yourself up for an injury. So I'm coming down with my hands. I'm going to push my legs apart, and then I'm going to come down on my elbows. So what's really good is in between the thighs could be some blocks. Take a few deep breaths here. Then walk the hands underneath you and just see what's better, hands down or up. Because if it's you go up here, you might be like, wow, it's too much pressure. It's okay to have the hands down. Just at some point you might need more weight. I've said this before, the more flexible you are, the actual less weight you would need, whether it's your own weight or external weight, in producing more flexibility. Toe heel the feet in a little bit closer, and then just step the feet back together, and then just come back into practicing your pelvis. So you're going to bring the tailbone down, pubic bone's lifting, and then push it out again, and then tailbone down and pubic bone up. Just one more time, just hold for a few counts, and just, it's all muscle memory. It'll transfer when you're upside down, because you'll be like, how do I use my glutes? How do I get my body in a better line? And then come back down onto the hands and the knees, and then just take your left arm behind your back. So your left arm's behind your back. And just push through the right arm, and just kind of see how the weight sits in the hand. Get smaller through the front of the body. And then bring the left hand down. Just be relaxed. Because this is sometimes taught in yoga, and it's actually incorrect. So you want to push through the hand, round through the shoulder. The right arm is back behind you. You want again, the shoulder to support you. The strong action in the hand. And obviously the front and the body and the lower body, right? All of it is connected. And then bring the right hand down. Pat both shoulders, so round through the shoulders. lift up again, and then spin the heels to the right side and take the left arm up to the ceiling. You could check the ribs like with the left hand. That's what I just did. And then bring the left hand down, spin the heels to the left side, and then push. Push really strong. Again, maybe this is too much stress on the hand, the shoulder. Stick with planks. So the right arm is up. Keep the ribs in. Grip the floor with the fingertips. And then bring the right hand down. And then just have yourself in a down dog. Just pedal the legs out. And I'm not going to do a ton of these, but what I'm going to do is make my stance longer where my heel is off the floor, my right heel. And then I'm going to stack my left foot or my leg on top of my right leg. And I'm just going to lift the heel and descend the heel. So just a little bit of extra weight. I'm not bouncing. Not that that could be bad. Some people might teach that, right? But I'm just lifting and lowering, kind of finessing the heel down, and that'll help with your squats. Bring your left foot down, bring your right foot on top of your left, and then lift the heel and descend the heel. So just get a little extra weight in the heel of your foot, and it'll stretch out the back of the leg more. It's really, really good for your back. You know, getting that type of stretch through the foot and the leg, there are real benefits to that. And bring the right foot down, and then just walk the hands back towards the feet, right? And walk the hands forward, right? Push to the hands, push to the shoulders. You know, some people would say that my plank is too rounded, but to really get that type of front body involvement, that's what I'm doing. I'm walking my hands back, and then I'm going to sit down into a squat again. And maybe you can see that the squat's a little bit easier, a little bit better for yourself. So we'll go to the wall again for your handstand. And like I said, maybe 1 is your number, but you could kick up. Again, I'm doing this mostly for conditioning. And then as you get more familiar with it, then we can practice more of your balance, which I think go hand in hand. You know, when I'm outside, I just, practice free-handed handstands because I can. But when I do have a good wall, I certainly use it, in terms of correcting and making my practice better. So go to the wall again, have the hands down, push to the hands, fingers point straight forward. If you had some wrist pain, it's okay that the hands turn out a little bit, right? That's perfectly fine. So just round through the shoulders, make your front body strong, and then, bring the weight forward enough and really, really push. I take the right leg up, press, bring the right leg down. If you can, this is really good for coordination. Take the left leg up, push, left leg comes down, right leg comes up, push through your hands, drive through your hands, left leg comes down, right leg swings up, straight through the arms. Try to keep the head in the alignment of the arms. So you can look forward a little bit. Bring the right leg down. Take the left leg up. Push, 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 push. And then, if you were working on your balance, you just take your feet a little bit away from the wall. But I'm pushing through my fingertips, through my knuckles, trying to keep my belly and my ribs in. And then I'm going to bring my left leg down and then coming back into a squat. So just bring the backs of your hands together and drop your elbows. And you'll see how as you drop the elbows, it exposes the wrists. Open and close the hands. Like I said, just stretching out the hands a little bit consistently is good, but just kind of see if it's irritating, because I go through stages of practice where I don't do much wrist work, to be honest, and it's okay, but it may not be okay for you. You might have to do more for your hands. I've done lots and lots of push-ups as a youth. I don't do so much anymore. From time to time I do, just for conditioning, but I don't I was well prepared to do a lot of handstands before I ever got into yoga. And that's why I don't do so much, but for you, you might actually need to. So come back into having your hands beside the hips and just lower the knees if you could. And then take the knees up off the floor. Bring the legs forward, stretch out the feet. Really good with blocks, right? Blocks underneath the hands. And then bring it up. Now, individually move through one leg just to kind of see the sides. Again, I'm doing this so that the Cossacks get easier, the squats get easier. You're able to move through life just easier, right? So bring the knees up and then walk the hands forward. As you walk the hands forward, just be in a plank. Push through the hands. Lower to a chaturanga, a low push-up. Come up into an up dog. Lift through the pubic bone. And then push through the hands, the fingertips, pull back up into a down dog. And then just walk the hands back towards the feet. So just walking back. Walking forward. Right. Be on the tops of the feet if you could. And just make the front of your body smaller and stronger. Again, see how you hold your weight. Makes a difference. When you are learning free-handed handstands, you'll notice that you always go to one side and fall out. Right? That could be a term, could be you physically being skewed, or you just kind of legs go one way, or you just have an inclination to use one hand more than the other. So come back into the plank, push through the hands, round through the shoulders, and go back up into a down dog. So pull all the way back up into a down dog. Walk the feet forward to the middle of your mat, and then just walk the hands back towards the feet. So I'm going to roll myself up to standing, and then just one time I'm going to bring the tailbone down and the pubic bone in, or up, I should say. It's just, again, a good way to kind of get you to understand how your pelvis should be in space when you're upside down. There's this thing within yoga, like you'll hurt your back or whatever if you're in a banana. I mean, if you're doing a lot of handstands, sure. But most likely you're not going to hurt your back from being out of alignment. What I think is more important is that you're practicing and you're trying to correct things, trying to make them better, right? So just come back into the middle where your legs are wide and just make the stance wide. And you could measure the feet out. That's a way that's taught, but I'm basing it usually on how my body feels. So if it feels too short, I make it longer. If it feels too long, I'm making it shorter. So I'm going to turn my left foot out. I'm going to go into the Cossack again, and then I'm going to bring myself up. So I'm not going all the way down into it, again, more for conditioning. And then I'm going to bring myself up. Sometimes in this class, I'll use an external weight. It serves for balance. And it could be also too to get the legs a little bit stronger. Start with a small weight, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, something like that. And then it could be bigger. But like I said, if you are a flexible person, so I'm going to sit a little bit deeper into this. And then as I'm in this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my arms out wide. I'm going to come forward just to expose more of my back and my inner thigh. You could support your head with your hands. That's a good way. But try not to have all your weight in your left leg. Keep some of the weight in the right side. And then bring yourself up to a seated position, but we're going to try to sit down with our hands. Bring your hands behind you if you need to. So I'm controlling it as much as I can. And then I come down. And then when I come down, I'm going to bring the left leg in. So more of an internal rotation. So I'm kind of sitting into the left hip if I need it. If you can't take that, know that you could have all your weight into your right side. So I'm going to take my hands behind my head. So I'm not using my arms to come forward. I'm using more of the strength of my upper body to come forward and to come down. I'm lifting my head into my hands so that I'm extending more. And the folding in will help with, say when you fold forward and you bring your hands down for your handstand or your headstand, it's that much harder to come up. So a forward bend really helps. Just going to do this one more time. Hands behind the head. And then if you really want more weight, have the arms in a straight line overhead, just like your handstand. And then bring yourself back up. Now bring the weight into the left foot, elevate the left knee. Use your hands, of course. Drive through the left foot, elevate the pelvis, bring it over and up, bring it out to the right. Elevate the foot. And because it's a video and whatever, I'm trying to keep things even, but if I'm practicing on my own, often my sides are not even. I may even only do one side. So just drive the legs apart and then take the arms forward or out to the sides, and then this will add more leverage into the spine and into the hips. And the goal could be you getting lower, but it doesn't have to be. It's just a matter, do you want it? Do you need it? So I'm going to bring the weight up, and I'm going to sit down, and then as I sit down, I'm going to turn my right thigh in, which is internal rotation. And then when I come up and forward, I'm just going to keep the arms out wide. So I want to leverage the pose from my torso extending. So as my torso is extending, I'm lifting my leg up into my upper body. So you want an active forward bend, not just pulling on the leg. You could certainly pull on the foot. Of course, you could do that. But when I come forward, I'm going to take my hands behind my head. Now there's more weight in the upper body, so it's easier to get lower. And if you've been doing yoga for some time, like I said, you don't need a big heavy plate on your back. If you were a big stiff guy, for sure, you could certainly do that. But when I come down, I want to be able to lift my leg into my chest. So I'm making myself smaller and stronger, not just, a big pile of whatever, right? One more time, I'm going to come forward, extend from the chest, and then if I needed more leverage, I bring the arms overhead like Warrior 3. Now to come up, because the arms might be overhead, take the arms outside beside you and then bring yourself up just to protect your back. Again, if you're more flexible, elevate the right knee, bring weight into the right foot, drive through the foot, and bring yourself up. And then we're just in a standing position, but just take the feet out wide into more of a straddle here. And then in a straddle, legs are lifting up and out, arms are out wide. I'm going to make my hands into fists. And then as I'm in this, I'm creating more. The good thing about splits is that you're going to keep getting more and more space into the lower body, which is obviously great for your hips, but it's going to facilitate more and more space through the upper body. So try to get the pubic bone to lift up, drop down through the tail. I'm using my left hand on my tailbone or my sacrum, and then bring the feet in closer, and then just take the feet back together. You could hop your feet in, but as you bring your feet in, just kind of, it should never be like, oh, I did something to my knee or I did something to my hip. This may happen, but that's why I'm more on the conservative way of doing it, because I want to be able to do it every day if I want to. So the next handstand that you're going to do is walking up the wall. So if you go close to the wall, you want everything to touch or close to it, like think nose and toes. But if I'm not completely at the line, and I'll give you the cues as I'm upside down, is that I want to be straight. If I'm not all the way to the wall with my hands, I don't want to bring my chest to the wall, because that'll just bring a big banana into your back, right? So when you're away from the wall with your hands, you want to keep everything in a straight line. When you get to the wall, you want to keep that line, and maybe not all the way back, right? But before I tell you to come out, you come out when you need to, because you could fall in this position. It's much easier to fall. So if I'm going to fall, think about falling. And not that I want you to fall, but how would you fall? Like, I think of when I'm in a room, if there was a fire, how would I get out? You want to think about these things before you just get into that situation. So like if I fell because I have a wall to my left, I would go to my right. That's why you got to know is could your right hand handle that, right? So I'm going to walk down with my hands. I'm going to have my shoulders packed, right? Packed through the shoulder, just like a cat stretch. And then I'm going to walk my feet up, and then I'm going to push my hands to the wall. So I'm transferring the weight, one hand to the other, to walk, right? Just like walking on your hands. Now get about 2 to 3 feet away from the wall and just create a straight line. This is a great way, really good way. But then over time, if you really want to get more specific, walk the hands back towards the wall and then bring the nose to the wall and bring the ribs in. So push, 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 push. Now come away from the wall if you need to, and then that could be like a series. So say I'm going to do this for a minute or something like that. I couldn't do it for the whole minute. Well, then I could walk away, and then I could be in. And then you walk the hands forward. As you walk forward, I'm going to walk my hands back towards my feet. And now I'm back into a squat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll up my mat a little bit. And then as I roll up my mat, I'm going to use it for my squat. So there's some really great variations of a squat. That's great if you can have your feet flat. But for some of you, you might want to have your heels up. And it's good. And you'll probably need to use it for however long you need to, right? But then at some point, the feet most likely will be flat. But you don't want to get an injury before that time comes just to get your heels flat. It really doesn't matter. No one cares. I mean, even if you posted something on your Instagram that your heels are up, I'm sure you'd still get praise or applause from it. You know, it's just an aesthetic. But just like when I'm using these variations, you might need an elevation. That's why I need it. The longer your legs, the more space you'll probably need between the feet. So it's okay to have a wide stance. You'll notice that there's more leverage in the inner thighs. So if you have a tendency to have back pain from squatting, is be more active. And when I do these variations, you might want to just hold just a static squat. Sorry, there's some renovations above us, but I'm going to push. I have very long arms, so I'm going to push my elbow into my inner thigh rather than my hand. There's days that I push with my hand and my arm, but I usually don't start with that. I usually end with it. So I'm going to just push, and then my right arm and shoulder is out. I don't want to be on my elbow with my right arm. I want to be with my shoulder or my elbow bent. So I said elbow, but if it's straight, you know, not so good for the elbow. If the arm is straight, you want to be on the shoulder. So just push just a little bit from time to time. Push a little bit more out. And if you like more static, as you like more static, I'm pushing through the hand, then I'm getting more space into my hip and my back. And then I'm going to bring my left arm down and then my right hand. So start with the elbow, again, whether your arms are short or long. Like anything, it's like, do you need more leverage or do you need more finesse? Like, do you need more ease? And with anything, you might actually go further with being a little bit more subtle rather than just, you know, crushing yourself. So I'm going to push into the thigh, or then, you know, pushing close to the knee. And then it can be held statically. And I'm going to come into just a basic position, but just kind of see how the weight sits. Extend through the upper body. Now what I'm going to do is do some twisting. So I'm going to try to get the elbow down. Now if I can't get my elbow to the floor, I can fill my elbow, my opposite hand into the floor. And then I'm going to take up the elbow. But I'm pushing through my left arm as I turn. You know, you could hold the ankle or you could hold either foot. You know, some days I like the leverage, some days I don't necessarily use it. So I'm going to bring my right elbow down, and then I'm going to take it up. And I'm doing these kind of slow, And when I'm doing them slow, I don't necessarily need more repetition because you're getting more time within the practice. So you don't necessarily, you can take the arm up. It's just sometimes people are using the arm more than their actual back. So that's why I like keeping the arm down or keeping the hand on my chest or having the hand behind the head. It's a great way. And then I'm going to bring my left elbow down, and my one arm is going to get down easier. Just so happens to be my left arm is easier. And then I'm going to take the left arm up. And for me, this is such a good example because for whatever reason, of late, it's been more difficult for me to twist to my left than my right. For years, it's always been my left. So I'm not twisting as far as I can go. I'm still going further. That makes sense. So bring the left elbow down and then take the left elbow up. Bring it down. Take it up. You'll push out through the right arm, have the right arm straight. And then again, you can take the hand behind the head, you can take the arm up. Just take a few deep breaths here. And then bring the arm down. Now you could come forward. I'm going to come forward with my head. So I'm making a shelf, right? Creating a shelf with my head. And then I want to keep my hips down and getting my head down. So I'm bringing it down and forward. Some days it's easier to get lower. But really what I'm looking for is just the quality of how I'm exposing my back. I'm not so driven to get lower. I know if that's going to happen, it will. I'm applying myself for sure, but it's not like my life depends on it. Like I'm perfectly happy if I never get my head to the floor, or if I'm in scorpion and I don't ever get my feet to my head. Like I'm okay with that. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo the mat, and then I'm just going to squat. So you'll see it should be a lot easier to squat for yourself. And if it's not, it'll come. Often I'm playing with my son for an hour like this, or I'm I'll fold laundry or cut my vegetables like this, So you could have a squat routine, but you could also make it just part of your life, and you'll get a better squat. Wait for a bus, a train. Everybody, you go to Asia, more like Japan. Like everybody's like down. Like it's very, even guys in suits and stuff like that. So bring the hands back behind you, and you can sit down. As you sit down, just take the legs out in a wide position. So when I'm in deep folds of the knees, I always like to straighten my legs out. I'm going to take my legs out in a wide position, not incredibly wide, not like we were for the middle splits. So I'm just kind of, in yoga we call it Upavishta Konasana. In the strength and conditioning world, or gymnastics, it's called a pancake. Just different schools, different names. So just think the thighs are lifting up and out, and just kind of move yourself in space like where you're exploring. Like where do you need to be? 5 breaths here, 10 breaths. That's to give you order, but to really understand where you need to be is ultimately where you're that's where the practice should be, in my opinion. So I'm just kind of exploring where I should go, and for me, the leverage is better somewhat here for my hips. So I'm going to start with taking my arms out wide, and I'm coming forward with my belly rather than my head or my chest. And I come up, and then again, I'm doing these kind of slow, then it's not such a high rep. I'm actively lifting my legs up, towards my hands, and then I'm going to come up, and then like I did earlier, I'm going to take my hands behind my head, come forward with the abdomen. And again, any of these ranges are valid ranges of practice. It's nice to get forward, down. It looks great. It's great for photos, but maybe you don't need to get that low today. Keep extending through the front of the body. Again, think more navel than chest.
bring yourself up. I'm just going to go to the right more as a counter. Going to my left. And then I'm going to do a bit of a side bend. But just for a moment, just bring the feet back together and the knees wide. I'll go back to a wide position, but with my knees out, pushing my thighs apart. And then I'm going to sit down. And I'm actually going to sit on a block. Just for those of you that are struggling more in cossack, this will help. So I'm sitting on a block on the second level. And then as I'm up on the block, I'm going to take my left leg out to the left. And then my right leg is bent. And the nice thing here is that you can really spend time in it. So not that you have to stretch all day long, right? But I'm big on cycling things. So I'll do one thing one day or a few things one day, and then I'll maybe do it later in the day if I need it, depending on what it is. And then I'm always cycling things just so that things stay fresh and that I'm always learning. So I'm going to go out to the left, and then I'm going to take my right arm up, and then I'm going to take the arm forward so the arm has weight. I sometimes do this with a light weight. So you can take the right arm up, and then bringing it forward, really, really good for the shoulders. You could grab the right ankle with the left hand, or strap it, right, with the yoga strap. Take it up. Bring the arm forward, follow the hand with the eyes and the head. And then take it up. And then I'm going to bring it over to the opposite side. So my left leg is in, my right leg is out. As I'm out to the side, I'm going to push into the thigh if I need it. I just say that because I know that I need it more on this side. Maybe you do as well. So I'm going to take my left arm up to the ceiling, keep it up the whole time. Right? Maybe not bringing it forward. I'm going to take it forward, and like I've said, of late, it's been so interesting for me to twist to my left. So, I would practice it more. But as I take it forward, I can take the hand lower, but for me right now, it's actually more difficult. I can get lower and somewhat collapse, but I like having the arm, in an angle that serves me more. I'm going to take the left arm up. I'm going to hold the ankle, pull in through the ribs, turn towards the left knee or towards the ceiling, and then take the left arm up and bring yourself up. So when you come up, I'm going to do just a little bit of core work, and then rather than a relaxation, I'm going to have us finish in a seated position. But once we do the core, you could lie down, right? You don't have to sit up. I usually say that if you have time, take a break, take a rest. But as I'm on my back, what I'm going to do is take the feet off the floor, and then just have this block overhead. This is good for your shoulders, but I'm going to squeeze into the block. And then I'm going to slowly bring my feet forward and just keeping my lower back and my ribs in. And then taking the legs up. You have good strength. This is more like for refinement. But if you're not a very strong person, this can be deceptively difficult, which is a good thing. And then I'm going to just bring the feet down, take them up. And then what I'm going to do is bring the feet down and then just hold the low position. My feet are barely touching the floor. But I'm trying to keep my belly and my ribs from flaring up towards the ceiling. And then you can bring the feet down. You can take the block up. Now just hold the block, if you did have a block, in your right hand. And just have the left leg straight. Just lift up a little bit up off the floor. Just pull in through the right side. These are muscles that you may not use in some work that we do, right? Bring yourself down. I'm just going to do one more on this side. I'm squeezing into the block to make your hands stronger. Again, that could be a weight too, right? And then I'm going to come down. I'm going to switch the block over to the left hand. I'm going to come up with the head and the shoulder. I'm really trying to isolate more on the lower half of my abdomen and
to warm my lower back. And then I'm going to take it down. One more time, I'm going to come up, pull in, and then bring yourself down. And then last thing you're going to do is take the feet off the floor and come up with the head and the shoulders. Just come into a low boat and just bring the legs forward to a level that's good for you. Again, like this is a good angle. It could be more forward. I'm just going to open and close the hands. So a 30-second hold is good. Just, a 10-second hold is a good place to start with, but it could be, I'm going to go for about 20, 30 seconds. So just opening and closing the hands, keeping my lower back down the floor, and then bringing my knees back over my hips, coming back down. Just to counter and just to give you a little bit of a stretch, is I'm going to lift the hips off the floor and ground down through my shoulders. Push through the heels of the feet, get the shoulders to be heavy. Put a block underneath you if you're planning on staying here. Bring your hips, when you come down, roll your upper back into the floor. Bring your mid back down. Try to isolate more of the facets individually. And then, like I said, maybe you're just resting. You can rest. I'm going to roll to my left side. I'm going to bring myself up. And then I'm going to come into a seated position. So I hope these classes are helping you. Let me know how they're going. I love hearing, the people that are taking them and how they're benefiting. But I'd also like to make it better for you as well. So having an open conversation is, I really think, a better way of learning. And creating a conversation is a great way. So you could always reach out to me. So have a beautiful weekend if I don't see you in any of the classes that I'm teaching. And again, I hope you're well. Keep in good practice. Practice often. These are tough times. I hope they're not too hard for you. And please share my information with people so I can help more people in getting through these times. I'd love to make it, more healing for people that are just, really, really struggling. And that's my Wednesday class at 6:30. And then these more progressive classes are great if you have already a good base. All right, take care. Namaste. Bye, guys.